All right, this is the morning of the 15th of April, Thursday, and this is the time to bring up any questions you have on the study guide. Uh, I left off on Tuesday beginning to talk about this concept of generativity, and we have a definition of generativity. It is nurturing the next generation, becoming our, well, generativity is nurturing others, this broader expanse of our influence. I have behind me the Abraham Maslow's uh, hierarchy of needs, which I posted on Blackboard. This is a better one than the one we talked, a better diagram. It's the same concept, but a better depiction of Maslow's theory. So um, let me just get out of the way for a minute here. If my visual part of this improves. Causes a little problem with the white light here. Anyway, you may remember from Maslow that his theory is you start out at this lowest level here of your physiological, biological needs, because it's hard to be warm and friendly and uh, working on your self-esteem needs when you don't have your basic health, water, food, shelter, those needs. So basically, we're animals. Human beings are animals, and so we have to take care of our animal needs, which is food and shelter and water and those kinds of things. So once you have those things taken care of, then you can move up to the next step, which is your safety concerns. The example I usually use, if you're in a war torn area, um, like parts of Syria or Iraq, um, and there's fighting going on, snipers in the city. You can't go outside your apartment or your house, or somebody might get shot. So eventually, you're going to need food and water. So you will violate your safety needs by staying in the apartment because your lower need of food and water is not being met. So you basically go backwards. You go out of what used to be safe and outside of your apartment to go search for food or get water. So um, people that beg on the bridge as you go from the U.S. Uh, to Mexico, or sometimes the other way around. You'll have people that are begging for money because of some disability they have. Well, their safety is being compromised because sitting in a wheelchair between two lanes of traffic, slow moving traffic, emitting all sorts of gases from the combustible engine, all these things are not good for you. They're not good for your, you could get hit, you could get killed. There's a safety issue, there's the environmental problems that you're going to have by that. But you give that up because you need this lower level of money because you don't have any money. You can't work because you're disabled. Okay. So if you've got the basic biological, physiological needs, you've got shelter, you've got safety, nobody's shooting at you, then you can have the opportunity to move up one more step to a feeling of belongingness and love needs. You can start thinking about getting in a relationship with somebody else and um, working on these emotional needs that you have that are being unmet because you're too concerned about these other two things below. So when you got those taken care of, then you can move up to the belongingness and loving needs. And then when you have that, then you can move up into your esteem needs, achievement. That's what you guys are doing in class right now. Um, Status, responsibilities, reputation, those things are at the next level. Okay. That is the next level. Beyond that is what you're also doing because you have better self-esteem. You've decided to go to college, take classes, increase your knowledge, those kinds of things. And then beyond that, you could be working on your aesthetic needs. That is your good health, your healthier skin and body, um, this idea of emotional balance, those kinds of things. The final, well, what used to be the final stage when Maslow designed this was self-actualization. His personality theory is you start off at the lowest level, get your biological, physiological needs met, and then you drive yourself up to the ultimate, which is self-actualization, where you have your personal growth, your self-fulfillment, you've taken care of yourself, you've got your emotional needs met, your educational needs met, your moral needs, all those things are met. That used to be considered the top of the triangle, but we're always improving things. So nowadays we've added another step called transcendence, which is where you are helping others to self-actualize. Self-actualization, as I said, used to be the ultimate goal of what Maslow had in mind, but adding that extra one of transcendence is even better for the discussion of what we're talking about, which is why I mentioned this. I'm not sure why your author doesn't talk about Abraham Maslow, because it really fits into this chapter, and especially about this discussion of generativity. Now, one of the things that I want you to understand, this idea of helping others is not just doesn't spring upon you when you're 40s, 50s, or 60s. It's something that it's a value that you probably had your entire life. But because, like this triangle behind me, you're so focused on other things, getting your education, building your family, those kinds of things, you don't have the time or energy or to focus on this idea of helping others, this generativity idea. But once your children are out of the house, maybe you're not working because you're in retirement, you have time on your hands, you can now do things that you didn't have time to do before. So maybe you went to church and attended mass, whatever, but now that you're in a different lifestyle, in a different life stage, you can now commit yourself to do more things at the church, work out more activities in the community, either through your church or social organizations, any kinds of outreach, the Knights of Columbus, the Veterans, VFW, all these kinds of things that you can spend more time with because you have more time to do that. You don't have to worry about going to job and making money every day. Okay. So the author talks about some important things in generativity. She mentions the idea that she's quoting this McAdams, Dan McAdams researcher, saying that McAdams realized the power of random life events in shaping personality. Well, we understand biopsychosocial, which is an ongoing process until you stop breathing. So the social side and the psychological side are always interacting with the bio and with each other. And when you have some kind of demanding things, sometimes even tragic, unpleasant things like early death of a parent or a child or your spouse, um, those things can trigger within you a different kind of focus as to what's important. If you were diagnosed with cancer and you lived through it, I can guarantee you that your life focus is going to change, has changed. Same way if you have a heart attack and you live through it, it's going to change your life forever. And these things can actually be, after the fact, helpful to you. You don't feel that way at the time, but as I mentioned last time, the military says, you know, that doesn't kill you makes you stronger. There's some truth to that. If you've been through these challenges, you push through them, you work through them, it puts you in a better position to do the same thing in the future. One of the reasons we like to watch all these movies about SEAL teams and Delta Force and all this, because when they go through their training, which is very, very, very strenuous, all of them will tell you after the event, yeah, the physical side is very difficult, the physical demands on your body, but what's even more difficult is the demands on your mind, the way you think. And what makes you a good Delta Force member or a good Navy SEAL member or a British SAS is the mind part. So that they force you in your training to confront all of your weaknesses, to feel like you want to quit at any given moment. And guess what? Most people do. The numbers of people, the percentage of people who persevere and make it all the way through SEAL training is very, very small. So they are, you know, for the Navy at least, they are the most elite forces. In the Army, we have uh, special forces, and some of those teams are stressed as much as somebody going through um, Navy SEAL training. So it's the mind. Certainly, it's the demand. I don't want to minimize the physical demand part, but there's a lot of guys who can handle the physicality of it. But when it comes to the mind part, um, they are not able to follow through because it takes a tremendous commitment and focus. So really what the author's talking about is focusing. What do you focus on? You don't really focus on generativity that much when you're younger. However, you probably, you millennials probably see, because I see it in you, great acts of generativity all the time about helping others and reaching out and doing kind things. It's just not the focus of what you're doing. When you have financial freedom, all of these other needs on this hierarchy of needs met, and now you have time because you don't have to work because you're retired, then you can start focusing, or you're, even if you're still working, you're not focusing so much on raising your kids because they're already adults. She talks about the commitment script. The life stories of highly generative adults have themes demonstrating that the researchers called a commitment script. This often described early memories of feeling, quote, blessed, or special relationships like I was my grandmother's favorite, or I was a miracle child who was a preemie and shouldn't have survived, or I had cancer at an early age. All these things really do change you, and your whole life is different. The most striking characteristic of generative adults' life stories are redemption sequences, examples of devastating events that turned out in a positive way after the fact. Nobody wants devastating events, but on the other hand, as I mentioned on Tuesday, if you don't have some history of challenges in your life, when you get to be 50 or 60, and you have your first great challenge of your life at 50 and 60, you are not in a good situation to work through that. If as a much early, in a much earlier stage of development, whether it's you guys in millennial age, uh, emerging adulthood, or after that, early adulthood, you need some challenges that you have broken through, that you have worked through, because that experience makes you stronger for these times when you're older, 50, 60, 70, 80, where you're going to have other demands in your life, but you've already had a history of success of pushing through it. So that's, um, it's funny. The author, I guess, doesn't want to talk about religion because it's politically incorrect. But what she's analogous to what she's talking to is, at least in the Christian faith, is a very common thing. Even using the word blessed is a word that's almost always associated with somebody who is a Christian, because they're talking about being blessed by grace. And it's a kind of a code word. If you want to find out whether somebody is religiously oriented or not, start throwing the word blessed around, and you will be communicating to others that you are a believer, and maybe that'll strike up a conversation with others. So, um, having just gone through Easter, it's a great time to think about the sacrifices that someone else has done for you, and that you in turn internalize and then reflect that. In Christianity, it's being a witness to your beliefs of being saved by grace and whatever. If it's not religiously based, if it's having overcome childhood problems or other problems within the developmental stages here, that those things drive you to be feeling uniquely blessed, whether it's religiously blessed or just blessed because you've gone through hard times and now you're on the other side of it. The author mentions a girl who was a prostitute in her adolescent years and then later became a minister. So she does talk a little bit about religion, but the fact that you can be impacted by something that happens in your past. I mean, we always talk about attachment theory, right? Which happened in your past and it's affecting you as an adult today. Well, other things that have happened in your past can affect how you are feeling today. Sounds a lot like Freudian psychology. Whoa, but we can't talk about that either because analytical psychology is so yesterday. It's not of any value today. Wrong, but that's what a lot of psychologists think. Now, this author really does show her prejudice. She talks about tip 1, 2, and 3. I think that's it. Okay. Tip 1 was, this is for your happy life, your self-fulfilled, your self-actualized health life that's behind me. Act in harmony with your inner self. Well, of course, you want to do what you really feel like doing, as far as your education and your relationships and what. And if you're doing what you want to be doing, then you're going to have some harmony in your life. I think that's one of these back here. And that will follow you throughout your life if you do things in a consistent way that seems to be in your best interest. Then you're gonna benefit from that. Number two, you will get more happiness bang for your buck if you buy time and experience rather than material things. So she's showing these researchers results that say if you enrich your relationships, that's better than enriching your physical environment by getting uh, three 80-inch TVs in your house. You might spend that time and money better for yourself by enriching yourself with other relationships, whether it's your family or extended relatives or the community, depending on who you're interfacing with. And then number three, reach out to very different kinds of people, which sort of gets you out of your comfort zone and enriches your life because you understand others better when you interact with people who are different than yourselves or from different cultures. And of course, she has to do the politically correct thing and say, hey, for instance, being frightened of outsiders such as immigrants ranked at the low end of the happiness scale. In other words, people who are frightened of immigrants are usually score low on the happiness scale. Well, yeah, they're frightened about the whole world, and when they're not in charge and they don't feel in charge, and then they have to deal with new things like outside people, including immigrants. Well, that's a hot issue today because of the political environment of changing from one administration to the next and changing our immigration policies. And now we've got this onslaught of immigrants coming in the United States, 185,000 last month, the highest ever on record under no matter who the president was. It has never been as bad as it is now. And you really don't hear that much about it in the paper. We've got uh, upwards of 20, 30,000 unaccompanied minors that have passed. And this is only April. You know, it's horrible. You've got a facility in Texas that was built for 800 kids, and it's got over 4,000 kids. I mean, they're literally laying next to each other in these cubicles that the government has built, not the Obama cages, but the Biden plexiglass encasements, and you got all these kids with their metallic moon blankets on, trying to keep warm, and you got them all jammed in there like burritos. Somebody selling burritos on the street. All these aluminum looking things all crunched up on each other. It's horrible. It's horrible to have kids in that situation. You know, you don't see much about it, but that's a political argument. Just enlighten your mind as to what you see and think about it in a critical way. So she wraps up with this idea of flourishing. And I told you flourishing was a term that came out of the positive psychology philosophy. So let's review the flourishing in middle age, which is the age that we're talking about in chapter 12. Understand that you're apt to feel just as physically attractive at 50 as you did when you were 20, and that a positive body image is important to feeling upbeat during your older years. Good information. Next, to keep your mind fine-tuned, exercise, take care of your physical health, and put yourself in a mentally stimulating environment. Good advice. If you feel that your life lacks balance, establish priorities, work hard on the most important areas, and rely on your external aids to help you perform. Practice thinking wisely. Be open to different points of view, make decisions by taking everybody's perspective into account, and develop a humble attitude about what you don't know. Next, develop a generative mission, feeling a sense of purpose, especially relating to making the world better, which means a lot of influencing a lot of people, not just your little world of you, your spouse, your family, your grandkids, but expanding beyond that. The real key to happiness in life. And finally, use specific happiness tips that the author just suggested to brighten your daily life. Live in accordance with your values, prioritize experiences over material objects, and reach out to people who may not share your worldview to expand yourself. It's all about growth again. Even at middle age, you're still talking about growing personality wise, perceptual, academic, thinking wise, and then obviously you're applying your involvement. The next section, of course, is all about, what does she call it? Social development. So you're developing yourself in society, getting more connections. It's almost like a neuron, you know, you're extending those dendrites out and making more connections into other neurons. Well, in your personal life, the theory is you are extending yourself out more and making more connections into the community and having a bigger influence. After all, look at the top of that triangle there. Transcendence, helping others to self-actualize. Now that you've made it up to beyond self-actualization, it is incumbent on you to help others, just like what is taught in the many, many religions, including the Christian religion, that says you're blessed and you are granted grace by unwarranted action. There's no way you earned it. You got it through the sacrifice of your Savior. So you are sharing that with other people. So there's some real analogous situations between what Belsky's talking, your author, Belsky, is talking about, and religion. She just doesn't want to say that because it's politically incorrect and people get upset that you talk about religion. Well, nobody's trying to convert you into being religious. I'm discussing it because it's a fact of life and it's something you in your critical thinking can measure these things. Would you feel better if you had a religion, whether it was Christianity or some other religion? You probably would be. I mean, those of us who do have a religion think that way. So we're going to tell you, yes, you would feel better, but that's up to you. It's an individual thing. There's a lot of people that, shun religion because for a lot of reasons, I guess. Don't need to go into that. I hope nobody's been trying to sign in. Okay. Well, all right. Again, same old story. If you're behind in taking tests, you better let me know because you're going to fail this class or get a really low grade if you don't. So take care of business. Tomorrow we'll be here. Friday we'll be here at 10 o'clock again. And I'll give you another opportunity to ask any questions off the study guide. And later, Friday or Saturday, I'll put up the next chapter, which is 13, and it is on later life, cognition, emotional, and social development. So it's very similar to chapter 12, only with the older group. Okay, I hope everybody is doing well. I hope you've gotten your COVID shot if you want it. As I told you, I got mine. I feel fine. It's great. It's liberating to know that you can go around and not worry about infecting others or getting yourself infected. So Take care. Get in touch with your good feelings of grace and blessings, and pass it along to others in your life. Take care. See you maybe tomorrow.